नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. We have been discussing from Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrit, the third chapter. Second part we completed last time, and today we will start the third part. So in the second part, we elaborately discussed about the limbs of devotional service, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur divided the 64 limbs into 5 categories. The limbs which are practiced on the platform of mind, some on the platform of body, some on the platform of society. Like that, he divided it into 5 different categories. So we quickly went through those 64 limbs because we had already elaborately covered it in the other books. So we did not go much deep into that discussion. So today, in the third section of this third chapter, we are going to discuss about avoiding obstacles in devotional service. We are going to discuss, have a nice discussion about the obstacles on the path to devotional service. What are the various obstacles and how do we overcome that? So that is the theme that we are going to discuss today, or maybe starting from today. We may not be able to complete the topic completely today, but at least we will get it rolling today. But before that, I'll request Radha Pramod Prabhu to do a recap of what last time, and then we will take it forward from there. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Over to you.
Om Ajnana-Timirandasya Jnana-Janashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Hare Krishna. So we are discussing from Chaitanya Siksamrita. This is chapter 3 by the Bhakti, part 2, the rules for cultivating Bhakti. So now we are discussing how Bhakti in terms of matter. So devotees are not fully satisfied with cultivation, devotion with body, mind and soul. They think that the whole world should also be engaged in God's service. This is Yukta Vairagya principle. So then they want to engage everything, whatever is connected. So in that they see 3 things. One is they see the place, time and matter. You see how it can be engaged. So in terms of place, how it is engaged in Lord's service, devotees, they go to holy places, to the temples, to devotees' houses, or where great devotees or Lord perform their pastimes. All these places they visit. And they also visit Dwarka, Puri, Kanchi, Mathura, and Navadvip, and also taking bath in Ganges and Yamuna. So this is in terms of place. And then in terms of time, and it should be used to cultivate service to the Lord. And also, this is most of the time they use for cultivating devotion to the Lord, service to the Lord. And after working 2 weeks continuously, they observe Ekadasi. They fast and whole day, night they don't sleep for the pleasure of Lord and for the health also. Both is good for Thakur. And then they observe festivals and appearance and disappearance of great acharyas. Now, in terms of matter, there is all the matter like Ashwatha tree, Dhatri, and Tulsi, and then there are images of the Lord, the cow, calf. They all worship all this, which are connected to the Lord. Mountains like Govardhan Hill, rivers like Ganges and Yamuna. These are all worship which are manifesting in the form of matter, and then they see the connection to the Lord and we worship them. And then there are certain rules we follow. Actually, whatever things that are used for the body, they all can be utilized for the service of the Lord in the deities. Like, and there are certain rules for offering bed, clothes, and sandalwood oil and utensils. So whatever we use for ourselves, we can use for the deities also. Same items to serve the Lord. And one important thing, if a devotees offer their favorite object to the Lord, their service becomes first class. And then there is also another point Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions how that uh, the deities are of 8 types: sandalwood, metal, clay, paint, sand, and the mind or jewel. Right? And then we have uh, all the morning programs are, of course, that is one point that was discussed, how the morning programs are covered in all the activities which Bhaktivinoda Thakur are mentioning. And then there is engaging other people or society in Lord service. After matter, this is one of the aspect of engaging others or society in Lord service. So for that, he gave 4 items: festival gathering of elevated devotees, increasing the Vaishnava population, raising a Vaishnava family, and spreading Vaishnava Dharma to all. So that is Jayavida, spreading the Krishna consciousness. So in festivals, he said, devotees can live together, take prasadam together, and listen to topics about the Lord and sing the Lord's names together. So taking prasadam together, all these things, how we are engaging. And then we discussed telling the story of how the war between Athens and Sparta. Uh, so there, how because of having their unity, because of taking food together, they could win. Might be Athens, the kingdom was defeated by a small kingdom like Sparta. So this is what we discuss, how important it is to come together and have celebrations, especially for devotees. And now to understand the devotees, this is one sub point that was explained by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that we need to be very careful understanding about devotees not to commit offenses. So we should give up association of who are not devotee pretenders, and who are sincere. We should offer service and respect to them. So respect is an external service. And then to explain these things, he explains that these uh, sympathetic people are of 3 types. These people, they have fully accept Vaishnava conclusions, but because of some reasons they are not able to practice themselves. They are like sympathizers for Vaishnavas. We have to respect them and take up Vaishnava signs and act as if Vaishnavas, but they don't have genuine faith, but have respect for real Vaishnavas. So, and then there are some people who are born in Vaishnava families of great Vaishnava acharyas. So, but they wear Vaishnava signs, but they're not really Vaishnavas, but they are sympathizers. They know because they're in that lineage, so they have that appreciation. So now, how to understand who is a real Vaishnava? Parameters for advancement is their degree of purity, depth of devotion, and capacity to inspire others. So this was like about Vaishnavas, and then if somebody has even Komala Shraddha, then he is a real Vaishnava. And if a person respects and take association of the non-Vaishnavas in that way, they actually they appreciate, like, oh, this person, even though he's not a Vaishnava, is having good qualities, and we want to associate with him. And you see some devotees, they are having some still some sort of anarthas or whatever. So it is better to associate non-devotees. Then it is very dangerous for his, detrimental for his devotion. So his devotion may decrease like that. And then there are false Vaishnavas. We should completely avoid them. We have to respect them as a human, as a secondary rule. We have to respect all living entities, but we don't closely associate. And who are such people who wear Vaishnava marks, but they are cheaters? Just for cheating, they wear Vaishnava tilak. And some people, they identify themselves as the followers of Vaishnava acharyas, but the purpose is to introduce Advaita philosophy. And then there are some people who advertise themselves as Vaishnavas to gain money, position, or some other material enjoyment like that. So we should completely avoid them. And then there's another aspect in terms of this is the increase the Vaishnava population. So by that, what happens is materialism cannot exist, and then male devotee should associate only with female Vaishnavya. And if wife is initiated, it is considered very good fortune. She should be taught in Vaishnava philosophy, and in that way, they beget Vaishnava children. And then next is rising a Vaishnava family. So that is like children should be understood to be servants of the Lord. And now it looks like outside materialistic people is all they are also raising children, and devotees are also doing it. But there is a difference in consciousness because they act as servants of the Lord. So they understand that that's why devotees are very peaceful, whereas materialistic people they undergo so much stress and problem. And then last thing is showing compassion to all living entities. So we should devise various means of transforming living entities into Vaishnavas. And then we keep four types of relationship. Ishvare, Tadadini, Shubhalashan, Shuddhasya, Prema, Maitri, Bhagaksha. So these are the four ways of having relationship. And then we distribute unlimited mercy to those who have developed qualification bhakti through good association. There are two types with Shiksha and Shakti Sanchar. This is about this is their cultivating devotion, rules of cultivating bhakti in terms of matter and with other living entities. Right.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, bro. Thank you very much. Very nice summary of what we saw last time. So before we start today's discussion about avoiding obstacles in devotional service, if there are any quick discussion points, comments, questions based on what we discussed last week and summarized today, so we can take anything anyone would like to share as add before we start today's discussion. Okay, if there is none, then we'll start today's discussion now. Okay, so we are going to discuss this theme of avoiding obstacles in devotional service. So, so this chapter is exclusively dedicated to Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. So that's why we are themes of devotional service and all that, and what was the pious activities like Varnashrama duties and other things were discussed in the previous chapter, because that is for, you know, theistic morality. The previous chapter was on the platform of theistic morality, but not on the platform of devotional service. So all the punya karma and the benefits of practicing punya karma and everything was discussed. So now this chapter discussed about is discussing about why the sadhana bhakti, therefore all the limbs of devotional service and everything is being discussed now. So in that, in the third part, we are going to discuss about avoiding obstacles in devotional service. Okay, so here, Sheila, this is also a theme we have discussed. Those of you who have been attending Madhurya Kadambini, Harinam Chintamani, or even some sections of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, we have covered it. It's not that I see many of you have been attending the other sessions also. So it's not that. So, but still, if there is any discussion points, we will take. But other than that, we'll keep going, and I will keep pausing for some discussions. So here, Sheila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the practitioner of Vaidhi Bhakti must perform all the 5 types of cultivation explained in the previous section. All the 5 types of cultivation on the platform of soul, body, mind, matter, and society. Okay, on all platforms one should practice. That's what he's telling. In performing these activities, there are certain forbidden actions that create obstacles for the devotee's progress. So These must be avoided. Pratikulyasya varjanam. Whatever is pratikul, he should avoid. So there are 10 types of forbidden activity. What are the 10 types of forbidden activity? This is coming in the 7th canto, 13th chapter, 7th verse, and 8th, 7th and 8th, these two verses. This is specifically for devotees. Nasat shastreshu sajjeta nopajivet jivikam vada vadam styajet tarkan paksham kamchana samshrayet na shishyan anubadnita grantan naivabhyaset bahun na vyakyam upayunjita narambhan arabet kvachit. So all these are mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also in the 64 limbs when it talks about don'ts. The first in the first 20 limbs, 10 of the limbs are don'ts and 10 are do's. So 10 are do's. So many of these which are mentioned in the 7th canto are mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the don'ts. So he says, Na sajjeta asat shastreshu. One should not be attached to material literature. Okay, this is in general, but more specifically for devotees, one should not be attached to scriptures which discuss about conclusions different from Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so one should not be attached to material literature in general, or more specifically for us, one should not be attached to literatures which discuss conclusions which are different from Srimad Bhagavatam's conclusion. Okay. Na upajiveta jivikam. Na upajiveta jivikam. Or one should not maintain oneself by an occupation. This means one should not, especially one should not maintain oneself by a devotional occupation. So this we have discussed many times in different forums. I don't exactly recollect where we discussed this last time, but sometime recently, maybe a couple of months back, we did discuss this theme where Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur very clearly mentions that it is better, even in Jayavadharma he mentions, I quoted from Jayavadharma, but maybe it was in this forum only, that especially one should not try to maintain oneself by performing devotional service. This is a strict no. One should perform devotional. I mean, of course, our occupation is also devotional service. That's how we see. But that does not mean one can perform. One cannot. If you remember, we discussed devotional service as primary limbs and secondary limbs. So primary limbs are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Ityadi. All these are primary limbs. And secondary limbs are the primary limbs. Okay, anything which will support the primary limbs. So performing an occupation to maintain oneself and one's family so that one can comfortably practice devotional service. If one with that mode, when one engages in an occupation, then that occupation becomes secondary limb of bhakti. But a primary limb of bhakti cannot be performed for making money. One cannot speak Bhagavatam and earn. One cannot charge money for speaking Bhagavatam. One cannot charge money for singing Kirtan, right? This is not allowed because that way, or one cannot charge money for worshipping the deities. Ideally, because one will start naturally in our conditioned state, we will start seeing it as at, as something that we have to do in exchange for money. So, so therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, better you engage in an honest occupation and engage in the primary limbs of devotional service voluntarily, not for money. Okay. So this is what um, it is mentioned. This is what uh, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So one should not engage in the primary limbs of devotional service for making money. Okay. Ideally, there may be very exceptional cases where it has to be uh, uh, accommodated, but generally we should avoid. That is the meaning. Uh, uh, you know, na upajiveta jivikam. One should uh, um, oneself uh, by doing an occupation of mm, these primary limbs of devotional service. So then the third point is Vada Vadam Stadet Tarkan. One should give up controversial arguments, which means one should not take up to the path of devotional service primarily for, arguing and establishing one's own practice to be the highest, and with a desire to show someone else's practice to be inferior, like that. And Paksham Kamchana Samshrayat, and one should not take either side of an argument. Neither should oneself be interested in arguing, nor one should be interested in siding with people, take sides. Especially when two devotees are arguing, we should not take sides, and ideally, one should just leave that place like that. So, and then he says, Na Sishyan Anubadnita. One should not seek disciples, means one should not seek unqualified disciples purely for the purpose of either some selfish purpose. Either to to think that, okay, I want control over many people, or maybe someone accepts a disciple because, he has lot of Lakshmi or money. So if I accept him, then I will get a lot of money for my projects, like that. So that way, accepting unqualified disciples, just so that one can um, uh, unqualified disciples, so that one can uh, make a lot of money or for other such purposes. So this is a strict no. Na Sishyan Anubadhita. This does not talk about accepting qualified disciples. So accepting qualified disciples in good number, one can always do. And again, someone may say, how do I know? Where, while accepting a guru might think that he's a qualified disciple, but later one can always lose one's qualification because of insincerity and all that. So in that case, the guru should either personally try to correct the devotee, or he should have a system where that such a devotee, an errant devotee, is corrected. But if the guru is specifically uninterested in correcting the disciple, and if the disciple is not willing to correct himself, if the guru is not willing to reject that disciple, then it is a problem. Why? Because, if I reject that disciple, then I will not get my Lakshmi, or I will not get that support. Thinking that way, if one does not reject, then it's a problem. Na Sishyan Anubadnita. Bahun Grantan na eva abhyaset, or study too many books. Too many books means too many books. Srila Jiva Goswami says too many books means too many books which are not in line with the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam. If one reads books which are not in line with the conclusions of Srimad Bhagavatam, one should not, it is not good. Na vyakyanupayunjita, nor partake in many discourses, which means non-devotional discourses. Na aramban arabet kvachit, nor attempt huge projects at any time, which means engage in big projects so that one may get distracted from performing even basic Krishna conscious activities. So in this way, it is mentioned there are 10 types of forbidden activities. Na asat shastrechu sajjeta na upajiveta jivikam vadavadam strayen tarkan paksham kamchana samshet 4 na shishyan anubadnita 5 grantan naivabhyaset bahun 6 na vyakyan upayunjita 7 narambat arabit kuchit 8. No, 10, where does it come from? Okay, anyway, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 only it says, I don't know. Okay, anyway, so here he lists those 10. Okay, so association with materialists, establishing unfavorable relationships, attempting huge projects, spending time studying different works and various philosophies, meanness, subjection to lamentation and other afflictions, disrespect of devatas, giving trouble to other living entities, seva and namaparad, and tolerating criticism of Lord and his devotees. These are the exact 10 which are 11 to 20. The 11 to 20, if you see the 64 items, the 11th item till the 20th item. So these are mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has dedicated the whole section, the third section. So the first 10 are do's and the next 10 are don'ts. So do's and don'ts. And so he has dedicated one section purely for don'ts. The 10 items which are unfavorable for devotional service. So these, in this way, the first 20 limbs are said to be the door to devotional service. If we don't practice these 10, then it is not considered to be the first 20, then one does not even enter into devotional service. Like that. So now we are going to see these 10 items. But before we start discussing separately about these 10 items, any quick discussion points, comments, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add before we move forward? Any quick questions, comments? Okay, if there is none, then we will continue our discussion. Okay, so now we will start discussing one by one. The first thing is association with materialists. Again, we have discussed this practically in every single book, because asatsanga tyaga yai Vaishnava achar. The primary symptom of a Vaishnava is when he avoids the association of materialists, unfavorable association. So therefore, practically in every single book that we have discussed, this has been discussed in detail. So so therefore, right now I may not go into so much detail, but still there is always scope for discussion. If you have any quick discussion points, comments, we can always take that up. So there are 6 types of materialists. Of course, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, in different books, he gives slightly different numbering. And so he says, first, people who are devoid of faith in the Lord and without moral standards. So they are devoid of faith in the Lord and they are without moral standards. This is the first kind of first type of materialist whose association should be avoided. The second type are people with morals but no faith in God. So these are atheistic, immoral. Okay. And the second category are theistic moral. Sorry. Yeah. Uh, Atheistic moral. Okay. First are atheistic immoral. Second is atheistic moral. So many times we say that it does not really matter as long as he is such a gentleman. So what is wrong in associating? We may say like that. But he says that even atheistic moral people, their association we should avoid. Rather, um, we should be more afraid of atheistic moral people. Uh, uh, we may think that these people are actually good. If they're atheistic immoral, because of our upbringing, it is difficult for us to be attracted to them anyway. But if they are atheistic but moral, then there is a bigger danger, because we may think that, oh, actually these people are very good. At least they are moral, not like our devotees who they may call themselves devotees, but they are also sometimes immoral like that. Okay. There is a question in the chat box. Faith in faith in God implies, does it mean faith in Krishna or faith in demigods? It means faith in Krishna only. Why I say this? Because you see the sixth type of materialistic association is association with polytheists. Polytheists means demigod worshippers. Them also he puts it in the category of materialistic association. Third, he says is people with morals and faith in God, but whose concept of God is subservient to morality. Okay, these are the karmavad people, karmavadis. Okay. So people with morals and faith in God, but whose concept of God is subservient to moralities. This is karmavadis. And the fourth kind are pretenders and their followers. They should also be avoided. The fifth kind are the impersonalists, and the sixth kind are the polytheists, demigod worshippers. Okay. So now, okay, there is a question in the chat box. So, can't we even take inspiration from materialists? Well, we can, but we should understand that when we start taking inspiration, then when we will cross the line and start taking their ideologies also, there is a very thin line, and when we will cross the line, we ourselves may not know. So there, it's not that inspiring actions can be performed only by devotees. I don't claim that. I don't think anyone claims that. Inspiring activities can be performed by others also, materialistic people also. But having said that, when we start appreciating them and start taking inspiration from them, um, uh, then it may happen that over a period of time, we may start subscribing to their ideology also. I mean, incidentally, you happen to see a materialistic person who is very generous, you appreciate, okay. But that does not mean we start following social media and start reading what they're writing and what is their next act. Like that, when we start following, then there is a very good chance that very soon we will start subscribing to their ideology. And they may slowly start replacing uh, our devotional role models. Maybe there is a good chance, so we have to be careful. Otherwise, there is nothing wrong. We can take inspiration from anyone, um, but we don't have to seek inspiration from them. If it comes, it's okay. Okay, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells, there is a question in the chat box. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells, when materialist works heart, I feel inspired. I am not able to clearly understand. Is it like when you okay, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells that when materialists work hard, I feel inspired. Oh, okay. Seeing. Okay, this is a very important point of seeking inspiration. This is a very important thing. So anyway, because you brought out this point, let us talk on this discussion. Let us talk on this topic. This is a very important point. Hmm. Okay, there is a there is another question. I'll take it little later. So, uh, so can we take inspiration from non-devotees? Yes, we can. Like for example, even if you see the Avadut Brahmana in the 11th canto, he accepts many gurus who are not even human beings. He learns something from fire, he learns something from water, he learns something from you know sun, he learns something from the river. All these are his gurus. So the gurus of the Avadut Brahmana. So he said that he learned these principles. He learned tolerance from ground. How Bhumi Devi. He said that before he observed earth, he never understood the importance of tolerance. So, or it is mentioned that he saw a particular from earth, he also understood law of karma. He said that earth taught him law of karma physically, or is it that so it is not that when the scriptures talk about this Avadut Brahmana learning particular things, he had already learnt it. He had already learnt and realized these principles. He had already internalized these principles of tolerance, humility, and all that. That whatever things of this world he saw, it actually uh, helped him reminisce those principles that he had learned from his guru. So he had personally learned all these things from his guru, but when he saw people of this world, things of this world, birds and animals and inanimate objects of this world, that reminded him of what he had learned and internalized by surrendering to a guru. So in that way, definitely things of this world can help us, can remind us uh, uh, of what we have learned and internalized under our guru, under Guru Sadhu and Shastra. But if we have not sufficiently internalized, when we see things of this world, rather than reminding the spiritual principles that we have learned, we might start learning what that material thing is or people are trying to teach us, because we have not strongly internalized what we have learned from our guru, or probably we have not even sufficiently learned anything from our guru. So under such circumstances, when we try to learn things from others, rather than learning proper spiritual principles, we may end up learning, rather than we may do that hoping to get some inspiration for our spiritual life, but eventually it may happen that we may start borrowing their ideologies also. This does not happen in the case of the Avadut Brahmana because he was already self-realized. That is why Krishna, while narrating this story, he says he was a Lokatattva Vichakshana. He was a self-realized person. Uh, So that is why if any one of you have had the opportunity of reading His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj's biography, um, the journey home, in that he talks about various things, a bird coming and, catching a fish from the river and flying away. Okay. So many things, we have also, we have seen these kind of things physically, or at least in the television, in the Animal Planet or Discovery Channel. Uh, so we might have seen these things where uh, where birds catching their prey or animals catching their prey. But these kind of realizations don't dawn upon us. Uh, but when a self-realized soul sees ordinary things of this world, uh, these ordinary things remind him of the extraordinary knowledge that he has received from his guru and internalized it. To the extent we have internalized and realized those teachings, to that extent, when we see ordinary things of this world, people of this world, it can remind us of what we have internalized spiritually. But if we have not sufficiently internalized the spiritual teachings, when we see materialistic things, it may just remind us certain material principles and not spirituality. So therefore, we should not necessarily be overconfident about our own uh, level of internalization of spiritual principles. Because if we have not sufficiently internalized those principles, then seeing a material thing may just remind us of a material principle and may get us absorbed in material things. That's all. Okay. So there is another question in the chat box. But for our professional growth, we won't be able to take inspiration from devotees. Yeah, we can take inspiration from devotees in terms of sincerity. We can learn the skill set from the materialists, no problem. There is a difference between learning the skill set and taking inspiration. We can always learn the skill set from them and inspiration from our role models in spiritual life. So at least in the early stages, this has to be uh, accepted because exalted devotees stavara jangama deki na deki taram murti sarvatra hoy nija ishtadeva spurti. So we can always learn the skill sets from materialistic people, no problem. We have to. But in terms of inspiration, our inspiration comes from we want to learn something nicely so that we can earn from it and please Krishna. So that is our inspiration. Our inspiration to do our profession nicely comes from the sincerity that we see in devotees. So the inspiration can come from devotees. The skill set can always come from non-devotees. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add at this point? Okay, if there is none, then we will continue our discussion. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur here talks about 6 kinds of materialists. People devoid of faith in the Lord and without moral standards, atheistic, immoral people. People with moral, no faith in God, atheistic, moral people. Many times we eulogize atheistic, moral people as if, but Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, no, don't eulogize them, don't, avoid their association. And even he says that people with morals and faith in God, but whose concept of God is subservient to morality. Nowadays, you see here, I would say 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. In the name of, in today's day and age, in the name of, establishing, in the name of, how devotees should be involved in establishing dharma, and in the name of, we are also part of the Hindu religion, so influenced by this Hindutva principles and all these things. In today's day and age, if you see, even within ISKCON, devotees become very indiscriminate in actually associating with, reading from all these categories of people. People with morals and faith in God, but whose concept of God is subservient to morality. There are many such people. And pretenders and their followers, impersonalists, polytheists, all of them can fall within the category of Hinduism. you have, of course, they can fall within the category of other religions also, but many times we are very eager to distinguish Hindu, non-Hindu, rather than, even within Hindu, if he's a polytheist, if he's a demigod worshipper, no problem as long as he's Hindu. If he's an impersonalist, no problem as long as he's Hindu. If he's a pretender, ठीक है, but at least Hindu faith के अंदर है ना, or uh, you know, they may be moral and they may have faith in God, but it's a very compromised understanding of the absolute truth. But ठीक है, फिर भी हिंदू है ना. So we, in the name of, embrace, actually we may end up, I mean, of course, we don't want to reject anyone, but that way we don't want to even reject people from other religion. But there may, at least the other religion may not be a polytheist, he may be a monotheist, he may not be an impersonalist, he may be a personalist also, he may not be a pretender, and he may be a moralist and he may have faith in God, and he may not have a concept of God which is subservient to morality. None of these four. He may be a genuine practitioner, but not within the Hindu fold. We may reject such people and embrace 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the problem of making distinctions based on religion rather than their level of faith and ideology. This is where the problem comes. And religion is again on the bodily platform. Religion is again on the bodily platform. The only difference between such a person of the other religion is that he just calls the Lord by a different name, and he has a slightly different cultural background. That's all. Yes, his external practices may be different, his cultural background may be different, the name that he uses to address the Lord may be different, his uh, parampara or the acharyas, they may be different, but nevertheless monotheistic, personalistic religion, and they are not pretenders, and their conception of God is not subservient to morality. So just that they call the Lord by a different name and their external practices are slightly different, but we reject them. Why? A non-Hindu. So therefore we have to see the way our acharyas are explaining, not what our the Hindutva gurus propagating. That we have to be very careful. So here he says, okay, there is a question: can we associate with other sampradayas? We can, but once in a while it's okay. But our primary association, hearing, and nourishment should come from our own sampradaya. That has to be clear. We can associate once in a while, sometimes, with other sampradayas, because their mode of worship is different. Even though they are worshipping Lord Vishnu only, but their mode of worship is different. Their aspiration is slightly different. Their practices are different. So if we, so therefore, we may start finding faults. Why these Sri Vaishnavites? Yuga Dharma is Nama Sankirtan only, na? Why these Sri Vaishnavites are not doing Nama Sankirtan? We may think like that. Or we may think that, why the Madhvites, they are worshipping Krishna, but why there is no Radharani there? We may think like that. Why they never speak about Radharani also? Like that. Or we may think that, hey, why in ISKCON, in traditional temples, they never allow the deities to be photographed? Why in ISKCON we are so loose about this principle? Why we allow photography? And in in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, if they are not born in Brahmana family, they are never given Brahmin initiation. Why in ISKCON why we are so loose with this principle. Anyone and everyone, we give them Brahmin initiation like that. So these things. uh, I mean, I don't know. Krishna Prabhu writes, we don't benefit by associating with other Sampradaya devotees. Is that a question or a comment, Prabhu? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand. Uh, is it a question or is it a comment? Is it don't we benefit by associating, or is it we don't benefit by associating? Is that a comment or a question? Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna, it's just a comment, Prabhu.
Oh, it's a comment. Well, I mean, that sounds like little bit on the harsher side. It's not that we don't benefit by associating with other sampradayas. We may get some inspiration, but we don't have to aspire for it. When it comes on its own accord, we can get, their attachment and chastity to their own parampara and their acharyas. We can always learn from that. Oh, they are so attached to Ramanujacharya's sampradaya that they never aspire to hear from anywhere because they have such powerful faith in their own acharyas. They are not searching in Madhva line or other lines to hear and get nourished. They are very satisfied getting the nourishment from their own sampradaya acharyas. When we see that, it's not that we can definitely get benefit, but we don't have to search for it. Oh, I'm lacking inspiration. Let me go and observe the other sampradaya devotees to get inspiration. That is, we don't go searching for inspiration from other sampradaya devotees. But when we happen to meet them and something is very inspiring, we can always take inspiration. That's not a problem. And we can definitely get benefited. It's not that, but we don't aspire for it. Is that okay, bro? Is that okay, bro?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So he says, those who have no respect for God or morality perform sinful activities. These are the first category is talking about atheistic, immoral. Okay. Without moral conduct, they simply do whatever they please. Such people, for sense pleasure and personal gain, create havoc in the world. Those who accept morality, so this is second type, atheistic, moral. Those who accept morality but do not accept God argue that moral conduct should be followed out of duty without fear of God. Why do you have to fear God to be moral? Why should God be a reason for morality? You know, isn't it quite clear that you should be moral? You know, like that. They forget that faith in God is a significant element in moral conduct. It will be seen, however, that if there is no respect for God, moral codes cannot be followed properly. So if there is no respect for God, moral codes cannot be followed properly, because what is going to be the impetus? You may say that, okay, I want you to reflect on this and give your thoughts. Can you share your thoughts on this particular statement? Why is what are the reasons that you can think that if there God, moral codes cannot be followed properly? Why do you think so? Is it true? Is it not true? Or what do you think are the reasons? You can please share your understanding, share your thoughts. What is your understanding on this? Okay, Madhavi Gopi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Prabhuji.
Dandat Mataji.
Prabhuji, like whatever any rule when it is set, with that rule comes that who has set the rule, and if we don't follow the rule, there will be some kind of punishment. So when this kind of a thing is there, then there is willingness to follow particular rules. Similarly, for the morality also, if we don't follow the moralistic principles, what will happen? If there is nothing, means there is nobody, and if you follow it is okay, if you don't follow it, that then also it is okay. If that kind of a situation is there, why somebody will feel, to inspire to follow that? So when the God is there in between, like that, yes, if we don't follow, then God may punish us, or we may incur some sin or something like that. Then there will be some inspiration to follow.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very valid point. That's a very valid point. Thank you, Mataji. Any other understanding, any other thought anyone would like to share? Ask. Okay, there is something in the chat box. So it means they just work on mental platform. Manoratena sati davato bhakti. Yeah, yeah, correct. Uh, I will add some more point to this. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatyakin right? So in order to be able to follow, in order to be able to follow moral rules or moral conduct, there must be, you can say, sattva, right? Because all moral principles are on the platform of mode of goodness. For them to consistently follow the moral rules, they have to be consistently in sattva, and it is bhakti which can make sattva to stick. Okay. Uh, Otherwise, sattva cannot be persistent in the absence of bhakti. So if the otherwise it is just that sattva is only circumstantial sattva. When the circumstances change, then rajogun or tamogun may become more prominent, and when rajogun and tamogun become more prominent, then there will be compromise of sattva, and then there will be inability to follow the moral rules. So therefore, in the absence of, so one is very explicit what Madhav Gopi Mataji mentioned, that when there is no fear of God, people will not follow. The second is, the second is sattva cannot be retained without a practice of bhakti. So therefore, such people will not be able to follow. So therefore, here Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, won't such people sacrifice moral conduct for their own benefit if an opportunity arises? Because what is stopping them? What is stopping them? So when an opportunity arises, they will sacrifice their moral conduct. So, okay, another point mentioned in the chat box. Some people like to earn respect by being good moralists. Yeah, they do. Yeah. But when there is no one there to respect them, they may sacrifice their morality. Okay, their platform itself is wrong. Examples of morality between beggars. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Correct. Okay. So by examining their characters, you can discover the impractical of their philosophy. Why should they be moral? They cannot give a very valid rule. Yeah, there is a very valid point. Janasya Krishnad Vimukasya Daivat Adharma Shilasya Sudukkitasya. So when one becomes Krishna Vimukha, then he will naturally become Adharma Shila. So it is not possible. Yeah. On the other hand, Krishna says, Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvat Shantim Nigachati. Kaunte Pratijanehi Name Bhakta Pranashyati. Very quickly he will become a Dharmatma. So, therefore, so by examining their characters, you can discover the impractical nature of their philosophy. They cannot. It's very difficult. In the absence of a person who will reward or punishment for their morality, or in the absence of sattva, which can become persistent only by practice of bhakti, how is it possible for them to be found moral? It's very difficult. Okay, it's not possible. Where self-interest arises, the moral codes will be violated. Okay. Okay. So any quick comments, questions, discussion points on this? We have discussed the two types of materialists, which is atheistic immoral and atheistic moral. Any quick comments on this two themes that we have discussed? Okay. If there is none, then we will continue our discussion. So he says the third type of materialist has belief in God, but that belief is subservient to morality. So within that, there are two subtypes, he says. One type maintains that worship of God is important, but does not believe in his actual existence. So which means for him, God is imaginary. God is non-existent, but you imagine the presence of God and worship him, it is good. So that's why he says worship of God is important. Such people believe that there is no harm in imagining a God and worshipping him with faith, but they then abandon the worship when good conduct is achieved. So when good conduct is achieved, then they will give up worship of God. Okay. So because the purpose has been achieved, and anyway God does not exist, right? But accepting him and worshipping him is good for developing good conduct, like that they think. So the second type believes that by performing activities of worship of the Lord, such as Sandhya Vandana, the heart will become purified and Brahman realization will be achieved. At that point, there are no more duties to anyone. This relationship with God is like a temporary meeting of travelers at an inn. Both these types are averse to devotion. So this is the third type, which is theistic moralist who considers morality superior to God. Okay. So within which there are two types. The first type is God is important. Worship of God is important even though he does not have an actual existence. So they don't believe in the existence of God. They're actually atheistic only in one sense. Okay. But they see that, but if you imagine that there is a God and try to be uh, God fearing, then it is good to develop good conduct. And once that good conduct becomes a part of your nature, then there is no need to worship that imaginary God. This is their understanding. The second type of the second category in this type are they believe that by performing activities of worship of the Lord, such as Vandana, the heart will become purified and Brahman. So they do it, they do some rituals like Sandhya Vandana so that they can achieve liberation. But otherwise, so therefore, people relationship with God is like a temporary meeting of a travelers in a inn. Inn means like a guest house. Both these types are averse to devotion. So there is a very theoretical acceptance of God, but there is no devotion. Okay. And the fourth type of materialist is a pretender. Okay. The fourth type of materialist also adverse to devotion is the pretender. The pretenders may be classified as cheaters and cheated. Both are pretenders. Okay. They do not accept the eternal nature of bhakti, yet they wear the dress and markings of a believer. They have their own motives, which any honest person would decry, but they want to wear the dress of a devotee. Cheating everyone, they pave the way for a world of sin. Undiscerning people, people who lack discrimination, these are the cheated. Okay. Undiscerning people, allured by their external appearance, take up the same path and end up rejecting God. Hmm. They take up the same path and they end up rejecting God. Hmm. So these are the cheater. These are the first category are the cheaters, and the second category are cheated. Okay. So, hmm, hmm. so, so then he says that they have beautiful tilak and dress. They chant the name of Krishna from the world and give attractive speeches, but secretly they harbor desire for wealth and women. Many such groups are seen. So these are the pretenders, many categories of pretenders. Yeah. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions, anything around that? There is a comment in the chat box. Sometimes Prabhupada mentioned about many people wanting to be cheated. Yeah. Cheated means no one wants to be cheated, but just that they don't want the real substance. They want something compromised for a cheaper price. They don't want to pay any price. They want a very exalted thing very cheaply, so they get cheated like that. Okay. Yes, Hari Prabhu, you can speak.
Prabhuji, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Prabhuji, I mean, I want to continue that statement that Srila Prabhupada tells many wants to get cheated, but I have this doubt from many days that how people wants to get cheated. Like my doubt is generally there are many genuine people who might unfortunately might get connected to some different people, different
Mhm.
Mayavadi people, different places. So I'm just thinking how they want to get cheated. Nobody wants to get cheated themselves. You know, how it is true? Can you please tell me?
Well, uh, they want to get cheated means they want valuable things cheap. So they want valuable things cheap. That way, making themselves completely vulnerable to get cheated by these cheaters who promise to give them something very valuable very cheap.
Mhm.
So no one
Okay.
wants to get cheated. So that is not the way in which Prabhupada is telling. But people want very valuable things very cheap. That way they become vulnerable to get cheated by cheaters. In that sense, Prabhupada says. That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, there is another question in the chat box. We can understand that if you call a cheater to be a pretender, that we can understand. Why do you call cheated people? Why do you call them as pretenders also? Because they may think, oh, I am also after liberation. Hmm. I also want liberation. Uh, but how? Just just give me one mantra by which I will get liberated. Uh, uh, so like that, they want something. I don't want to do any sacrifice. I don't want to do anything. Just give me one mantra, and I will pay for it. Hmm? I will pay for it. Take one mantra. Just give me one mantra and give me liberation, or give me one mantra by which I will never suffer in this material world again. I don't want suffering at all. How much do I have to pay for what mantra you will give me? So they are pretenders because uh, without any sacrifice, they want something very valuable for for a very cheap price. In that sense, they are pretenders. So they want to call themselves, as very pious people and very exalted people, while they just want to throw away some money and get some this thing like that. So that way they are cheated. So they want to go to holy places. Uh, they want to go to holy places and like especially places like Tirupati and all that. They think that I will bribe these people and get uh, to take darshan, or I can pay money to exorbitant amount of money to get darshan. So that way they think that by money they have purchased the Supreme Lord, and they really think like that, but they're actually cheated. Uh, so they don't understand that the Lord is not pleased by the money that they give anyway, which is anyway not their money. The Lord wants their sincerity that they don't understand. Uh, to stand in the queue to sort of uh, feel and anticipate seeing the Lord, uh, you know, to develop a kind of hankering to see the Lord. That is what the Lord wants to see, but these people are so misguided that they think that by I can throw money, and they brag, telling that I stood, in 5 minutes I had darshan in uh, uh, Tirupati, while people were standing for 10 hours, 12 hours. In 10 minutes I had one darshan, like that 4 darshans I had. Like that. But you cannot purchase the Lord like that. So, but these people they have a mentality. They are most be cheated. They can live with that satisfaction. They have all the bragging rights. They can go about bragging to everyone that way. But a simple person who honestly is standing with all anticipation, increasing his appetite to see the Lord, 10 hours, 12 hours, he has stood in the line in great anticipation. After the 12 hours, in that eagerness, the few seconds that he gets to take darshan of that Lord, it is such a potent act. It is such a potent experience that he gets genuine purification. Whereas the other person thinks, oh, I just threw money. Uh, this fellow stood for 12 hours, 10 minutes like that. But what have you got? The Lord is not at all pleased to see you. And in all likelihood, in the after staying for 10 minutes, when you came in front of the Lord, probably the person was meditating on how just in 10 minutes he got darshan, and he is not meditating on the mercy of Krishna. So what has he gained? Such people are most vulnerable to be cheated. Their mentality cheats them. Yeah. And someone says apasampradaya people come in this category. Yes, they fall within this category. Cheaters and cheated category. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions on this pick before we move ahead to the fifth type of materialist? Okay, the fifth type is the impersonalist. The impersonalist. According to these people, heart becomes purified by bhakti, the truth will be revealed. The highest truth is liberation, which is destruction of the soul. As the distinction of the soul is destroyed, everything becomes one undifferentiated state. Okay, this is their understanding, impersonals. And they say bhakti and God are temporary. Acting as a servant of Lord is only a practice and not the goal. So they think that, okay, bhakti, where one considers oneself to be a servant of the Lord, it is just an intermediate state. That is not the goal. The real goal is to merge and lose one's individuality. Like that, they think. So according to them, Bhagavan is temporary, bhakti is temporary, and the bhakta is also temporary. So like that. So this is again, we have to avoid their association. Okay, we have to avoid their association. If devotees do not avoid them, considering them the same as materialists, their faith in the ontology of bhakti will become weak. Okay, so but in today's day and age, in the name of you know, you know, protecting Hinduism, we may become very indiscriminate in associating with them, hearing from them, reading their articles and all that. So this is something we have to avoid. And the sixth kind of materialists are polytheists. Okay, those who accept many gods have no dedication to one god. By association with such people, the devotee will also lose his faith in bhakti. The proof he says is yata taror mula nishechanena tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashaka pranopaharaccha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvarhanam achyuteja. Just as the branches and twigs are satisfied by watering the root, and just as the senses are satisfied by nourishing the life air, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, all our all our worship is accomplished. Like that. So the devotee must avoid the association of the six types of people. So any quick discussion points about these six types of people before we move on to the next topic of what is association? What does it mean to associate with them? Before we discuss that theme, any discussion points about the six types? Anyone is not convinced that one or more of these six categories should not be considered as materialistic association? Anyone? Or any other question if you might have? No, Prabhu, this is a very stringent definition by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But interestingly, if you see, show me one place in none of the places, any of the acharyas, including Srila Prabhupada, show me one place where they say people from other religion should be considered in this category. They never write. I have never read, at least. They talk about polytheists, impersonalists, and all that, but they never say Muslim, Christian, and other religions. They don't say that. I mean, not that they encourage. Same time, when he's talking about Asat Sangha, they interestingly don't seem to talk about other religion. They seem to talk only in terms of philosophy, ideology. They never ever somehow seem to speak in terms of religion at all. This is pretty fascinating because in today's day and age, this whole narrative has changed significantly. Or at least in particular sections of even our devotee community, this narrative is changing. Like that. Okay. Okay, there is one question in the chat box. We can also think that the Lord has blessed us with wealth, so let me use it to get quick darshan of the Lord. What is wrong in this? Well, there is nothing wrong, but we should not think uh, but we should also be, I mean, as long as we don't have an aversion to perform austerities for Krishna's pleasure. If not this way, in some other way, we can always stand in the line and in great eagerness keep chanting the holy name, keep discussing pastimes of the Lord. In that way, by the time we come closer to take darshan of the Lord, we are so we have so much anticipation and eagerness to take darshan of the Lord that it is a wonderful thing. But sometimes if you are running short of time, I'm on my way from Chennai to Mumbai, and I have a few extra hours which I want to utilize to take darshan of Lord Balaji in Tirupati. So, which means few extra hours to go and come, and I may have just very little time left in Tirupati that I can afford to spend. So definitely, I have the money to spend. I will spend. I don't have the time to stand in the line honestly and genuinely. We can always pay that money and take quick darshan, be satisfied, and come back. That is perfectly fine. I am not against anyone paying money to stand in paid darshan to take darshan. I am not at all against that. I mean, not my opinion. My opinion does not matter anything, but the acharyas are not against that. But just that we should not think that, I can, but we should be willing to perform austerities for the pleasure of the Lord. To stand in the long line in anticipation to see the Lord in itself can be very, very purifying actually. So, but of course, if there are genuine reasons, one can also spend that money. One can put the money that one would have to pay for standing in the line. One can put that money for the service of the Lord in the hundi. That is also possible. You can pay 100 rupees. You pay that 100 rupees you might want to pay for the darshan of the Lord. You put it in the hundi and stand in the line and chant the holy name, meditate on the pastimes of the Lord. Increase the appetite to take darshan of the Lord, and then when we come closer to the Lord, we can have a purifying experience. Not just while taking darshan, but even waiting for that darshan can be a profoundly purifying experience actually. Okay, anything else before we move ahead to discuss the next topic, which is what is association? Okay, what is association? That's what we are going to discuss now. So here Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, association does not refer to being present in the same meeting, riding in the same boat, bathing at the same place in the river, or buying goods in the same store. This is not association. Okay. So what is association? Okay. So association means dealing with them in an intimate mood. Dadati pratigranati guhyamakyati prichati bhungte bojayate cheva shadvidam priti lakshan. If there are these activities which lead to preeti, which enhance the intimacy and affection for each other, if those activities are there, then that is actually association. So that type of association has to be avoided. We should not hanker for that association, and we should not actively engage in these kind of six exchanges with them. Of course, for the purpose of preaching, we can always do that. In order to help in order to influence towards Krishna consciousness, we can always do, but not to get influenced by them. Okay. So this is the first type, which is association with a materialist. So association with a materialist is the first type of obstacle. So we are talking about avoiding obstacles in devotional service. The first obstacle is association with materialists, and amongst this there are 6 types of materialists who are described, and these 6 types were described in reasonable detail. And then finally Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes what is association, and in order to understand if we understand what is association, then we also understand what is not association. Okay, there is a question in the chat box. devotees tell that we give association to materialists, but we don't take association. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible, but one has to do it with caution, you know, because one should be careful that they are not taking from them and they are only giving association, you know. So we have to be careful and to 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 do it. If we are not careful, then we may not be able to. We may end up taking association also. So yeah, it is possible, but we have to do it with discretion, like that. So that is about the first type of unfavorable first obstacle, which is materialistic association. If there are no further discussion points, questions, then we will move on to the second type of obstacle, which is unfavorable relationships. Unfavorable. Okay, Madhavi Gopi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, if we like how you discussed the definition of by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that Dadati Pratigunati, and from all those points will cover the actual meaning of taking association or giving association. But when we see that, like many of our relatives, they are not devotees, so they come in the category of non-devotee. And like on the occasions of festivals and these things like that, this Dadati Pratigunati is going to happen, and it happens. So do we consider that as, associating with the materials? Because you can't
Well,
avoid that itself.
yeah, but we don't become dependent on that. We do it as a sense of duty. We do it as a sense of duty, and also we do it in such a way, uh, in a prayerful mode, that just let this person also, let me be an instrument to give some opportunity for these people for developing some sukriti, because they already have some affection for us. And if we properly try to channelize that affection, give them an opportunity, then there is a good chance that they may get some sukriti because of their affection for us, and gradually over a period of time they may also develop faith in devotional service. With that, we have with that understanding clear, when we act, then even though there may be the 6 exchanges, but we don't become, but our goal is very clear, our vision is very clear.
Okay, so in that also means more, or we should try to give association and not take association.
Yeah,
And
and certain things, like all the cousin sisters come and they say, chalo aaj ek picture dekhne ke liye jate hain, you know. So we may not do that, but at the same time, we can sometimes, as a matter of etiquette, what I do, generally either with friends or relatives, I as much as possible avoid uh, public gatherings, because in public gatherings the majority mood becomes very prominent. Like if friends come together, either your school friends, you know um, I'm in touch with some of my school friends, some of my college friends. But if multiple people come together, then the material mood of enjoyment is very strong. So that's why I never go to gatherings, but I meet people individually. So when they meet individually, then you are the only person who is there. So they have some sobriety, and they are little bit in a mood to hear, uh, and they are also a little bit in a mood to share uh, their their struggles in the material world. because when they see a person, who is practicing spirituality, naturally they get this inspiration to share their struggles in the material world with their job, with their relationships and things like that, and they seek some solution and some questions like that. That way you can give them some solace, give them some guidance. That way you can give them an opportunity for some sukriti. So I, as much as possible, when I meet with, of course, this is possible for me, but for those in the grahastha ashram, to, it may not always be possible to avoid public gatherings, but one can also, you know, mm, one-on-one meet and try to uh, give them some inspiration for spiritual practice. That is always possible.
Okay, thank you, Praveen.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we will move on to the second type of obstacle, which is unfavorable relationships. So here Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, unhealthy relationships are also forbidden for the Vaidhi Bhakta. There are 4 types of unhealthy relationships. Number 1, with disciples. Number 2, with associates. Number 3, with servants. And number 4, with friends. Okay, with disciples, with associates, with servants and friends. So first thing, he says that by taking unqualified people as disciples for wealth and power, great disturbance is created in the sampradaya. This is first type, unqualified disciples. So by taking unqualified people as disciples for wealth and power, great disturbance is created in the sampradaya. The Vaishnava will not initiate disciples if there are no qualified persons. So one will not be desperate to make disciples. So by taking association of those who are non-devotees, many types of sinful habits will appear. So this is the second thing, which is associates. Associates means you can say friends, comrades, friends, right? Sorry, not friends, because friends is separate category. Associates means maybe you can say like something like colleagues, maybe. Therefore, such association should be given up. And third is servants. He says, it is not beneficial to take servants unless they are devotees. Oh, okay. So, or I would say, unless you also intend to inspire them to become devotees, maybe, I don't know. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur just writes one line. It is not beneficial to take servants unless they are devotees. Okay. Fourth, friends. In making friendships as well, the devotee should first consider if that person is a Vaishnava. Okay. So again, Ishvare tadadineshu balisheshu dvishestu cha prema maiti roti samadhyam. So the friendship, again, for devotees, this friendship word takes, it can be a little confusing. Okay. Friendship means where we seek some nourishment towards our goal. Then what about those people who were our friends uh, from school days, from college days, who are also in one sense like um, uh, you know, you can say like family friends like that. So what about that? So uh, those people, they will fall within the category of Balisheshu. Balisheshu means innocent, favorable people who can potentially be cultivated into devotees, and then that those Balisheshu can become Maitri also. So they are friends from a particular point of view because they may have a friendly attitude towards you, but from a spiritual standpoint, you see them as potential people who can eventually take up to Krishna consciousness. So they are from the spiritual plan standpoint, they are Balisheshu, innocent. From the material standpoint, they may see you as friends, you may see them as friends. But from the spiritual standpoint, you don't, through their association, you nourishment, but you seek to first give them nourishment, and later you can seek nourishment when they become devotees also. Like, so therefore, in making friendships as well, the devotee should first consider if that person is a Vaishnava. Does it mean all my school friends, college friends who are attached to me, I should give their association? No, we don't necessarily have to, but we can utilize that favorable mood that they have towards you, that favorable relationship that they feel with you. You can utilize them to give them the greatest benefit of Krishna consciousness. Gradually. So in that sense, they will see you as friends from a material platform. From a material platform, you can deal with them as friends also. But from a spiritual standpoint, we should learn to see them as Balisheshu, innocent people who have the potential to take up the devotional service because of their attachment towards you. That is the way we should see. So this is about the second obstacle, which is unfavorable to relationships. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions on this topic? Anything anyone would like to share as that? Okay, if there is none, we will continue. The third obstacle is unnecessary endeavor. So one should learn to give up unnecessary endeavor. Prayas, unnecessary endeavor. So here Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, devotees should give up enthusiasm for big endeavors in three situations. They should give up big endeavors in three situations. They should give up. One, if there are no funds for a project in the beginning, the work should not be attempted. Second, if a person's life is nearly over, they should not start a big project. Third, if the work requires a lot of help and there is no way of getting assistance, then the work should not be attempted. This is practical guidance Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving. If there are no funds for a project in the beginning, the work should not be attempted. Second, if a person's life is nearly over, they should not start a big project. Third, if the work requires a lot of help and there is no way of getting assistance, then the work should not be attempted. But all these three are instructions for sadhakas. But if you see very exalted devotees, like Srila Prabhupada for that matter, he had no funds. His life, he was near the fag end of his life. And what he endeavored to do required a lot of help. Okay. But he had absolute trust in the holy name. He had absolute trust in the instructions of his guru. So on the instructions of his guru, he executed. But whimsically, one should not have great enthusiasm for big endeavors. If there are no sufficient funds for the project, if the person's life is nearly over, and if that work requires a lot of help, then we should not. Such things create an obstacle in devotion. If huge projects for temples, halls, or ashramas are difficult to execute, then they should not be considered. This is very interesting. They should not be considered. Okay, there is a question in the chat box, but I think we did discuss it. Srila Prabhupada sent many disciples to various countries and told them to start. How to understand that? Of course, uh, Prabhupada empowered them also with the spiritual potency needed, but we cannot assume that we are empowered. Many times we may do it at the cost of our own spiritual practices, core spiritual practices. So, but Prabhupada, that was the need of the hour at that time, and Prabhupada empowered them, so they did. And it's not that Prabhupada punished them for not accomplishing something that he sent them for. So, like that. Okay, any other quick discussion points, comments on this theme before we move ahead to the fourth obstacle? Fourth, right? So the third obstacle is giving up unnecessary endeavors. And the fourth obstacle is studying many scriptures. So here Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, the devotee should learn the scriptures concerning devotion and those works that conform to the conclusions. This is very important. Devotees should learn the scriptures concerning devotion and those works that conform to the conclusions. So here he does not say Vedic scriptures. He says that concern devotion, devotional scriptures. Okay. So this should be avoided. So therefore, many times even devotees they should also read the Dharma Shastras. This is not recommended. Devotees need to study only the Bhakti Shastras. Okay. However, because of lack of time to read small parts of large works without completing a full study is not advised. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes this in many places. So he says many times people read small parts of big books. They want to read about especially with the availability of folio. They want to prepare for a class, they go to folio and do a search and compile their class, where they don't know what is the context in which something is written and what was spoken before, what was spoken later. They don't understand the subject matter, the context in totality. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if you want to understand the subject matter, this he says in the beginning of Shri Krishna Samhita also, he says, if you want to understand the subject matter thoroughly, then he says, don't study too many books, but he says, take one book and study it cover to cover. Okay, because if we take a book and let me see what Baldev Devbhushan has spoken about this commentary. You directly go to the 5th chapter, 14th verse. You want to see what Baldev Devbhushan has spoken. Baldev Devbhushan, he has, the acharyas when they write, or anyone when they want to describe certain subject matters, then they create their own terminologies, right? They create their own terminologies and they define those terminologies. The first and subsequent they use those terminologies, they will not bother to keep defining them again and again. So therefore, unless if one has not studied the book from cover to cover, there is a very strong likelihood that they will not understand the subject matter completely. There will not be a complete understanding of the subject matter. So here, just because there is lack of time, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, don't read small parts of large works without completing a full study. He says this is not advice. Devotees should read a work thoroughly, otherwise they will become uselessly opinionated professional debaters. What an amazing explanation, right? So he says that if devotees do not read a work thoroughly, which means line by line without skipping even a full stop, okay, unless one makes it a habit to study this way, one can become uselessly opinionated and one can become professional debaters. Uh, There are some people who take pleasure in arguing with any statement they hear, whether good or bad. This is forbidden for devotees because this is waste of time. Smartavya sadatam Vishnur vismartavyo na jatachit. So ultimately, at every moment, we have to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So, uh, but when we get into arguments, and especially useless arguments, we will this principle will not be accomplished. We will not be able to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So, so this is about reading too many books. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share as that? Okay, if there is none, then we will move ahead to the next principle. Next obstacle is miserliness. This is an obstacle. Just give me 1 second. Okay, the fifth thing is miserliness. So here, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, miserliness is very contaminating for devotees. There is miserliness of behavior, of wealth, and of effort. There are three types of miserliness. One is miserliness of behavior, miserliness of wealth, and miserliness of effort. Which means miserliness of behavior means when there is a better behavior possible, choosing to behave in a very mean way when a better behavior is possible. Miserliness of wealth means when there is a better utility of wealth, you don't choose to utilize it in a better way while in a non-better way. And miserliness of effort means when effort can be put, one chooses not to put sufficient effort. That is miserliness of effort. So here, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, with the Vaishnava, devotee should stand up when he approaches and care for him attentively. So this is acting not miserly in the form of behavior. What is a non-miserly behavior? Devotee should stand up when he approaches and care for him attentively. Devotee should give general respect and gifts to the Brahmanas. They should properly clothe and shelter their dependents. They should take items from others for a suitable price. They should pay taxes to the king. They should show gratitude to benefactors. They should give food to the poor, medicines to the sick, and cloth to those suffering from cold weather. You see here, this is all behavior. As Prabhupada says, someone asked Prabhupada, how do we identify your devotees? He says, my devotees are perfect gentlemen. So therefore, how do they deal with Vaishnavas? They should stand up when another Vaishnava approaches and care for him attentively. Second, they should give general respect and gifts to the Brahmanas. They should properly clothe dependents, which means proper taking care of their dependents is very much a non-miserly behavior by a Vaishnava. They should take items from others at a suitable price, which means they should not try to cheat others. They should pay taxes to the king. They should show gratitude to the benefactors. If you have taken something from someone, you should show gratitude. Why should I show gratitude to him? He is not even a devotee. One should not speak like that. This is very wrong. Then they should give food to the poor. Okay. Prasadam generally. But if prasadam is not available, even non-prasadam, but at least one should give if they are poor and suffering. The person is dying and you don't have prasadam, at least give them some non-prasadam. That is still fine. Okay. One should give medicines to the sick and cloth to those suffering from cold weather. Okay. So this is important. One should not say that, oh, charity means only I will give prasadam, otherwise I will not give. Yeah, if you have prasadam, no one is stopping you. But if the person is suffering from cold weather, give him some sweater also. If he is sick, give him some medicine also if it is possible. If devotees treat anyone in the world properly, then the fault of miserliness will not arise. This is a very important point. If devotees treat anyone in the world properly, they should treat anyone in the world properly, then the fault of miserliness will not arise. It is even enough if having nothing else, devotees simply speak nicely. Can't they even do that? Why miserliness there? Speak gently, we can speak kindly, we can speak in a way that is inspiring to others, encouraging to others. Why miserliness there? By proper speech, by wealth, by their own labor, they should behave generously with others. Lack of proper behavior is forbidden for devotees. So in this way, one should avoid miserliness. Very nice. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions here before we move on? Okay, if there is none, then we will see. I think we have time for one more. The sixth principle is lamentation. One should not overly give in to lamentation because it will distract us from our job on hand. He says, devotees should not be controlled by lamentation and other emotions. Shokadi avashavartita. This is what Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Samrit Sindhu. Devotees should not be controlled by lamentation and other emotions. And they should not be controlled by bad habits, by intoxication, or by superstition. Okay. So there are thousands of circumstances for feeling lamentation, grief, anger, fear, greed, and illusion. But the devotee does not become affected when such circumstances arise. One should be very careful not to give in to extreme emotions. Oh, this is a long section. I think we will pause here. We have seen 5 principles. From the 6th principle onwards, we will, because I don't want to, because I thought this would be a small one, but this is a long discussion. We will pause here and we'll continue this discussion next Monday. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. We will continue this discussion next Monday. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Pad ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Siksamrita ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.